Snoop Dogg didn't expect much from Carter's Market. That's why he liked it. No flash, no cameras, no managers tripping over themselves for selfies. Just fluorescent lights, lukewarm jazz on the speakers, and the quiet shuffle of carts across scuffed linoleum. It was Wednesday, late afternoon, sun dipping behind the smog-fuzz skyline, giving Compton its signature gold haze. He was here for cat food, some greens, and almond milk. Maybe a little peace. He moved slow, not because he was tired, but because there was no rush. His slippers made soft squeaks on the floor. A young man at the end of aisle 3 recognized him, did a double take, then looked down fast, like making eye contact would break the spell. Snoop gave him a nod anyway. Just a man shopping. No need to make it a thing. In aisle 6, he paused. A dusty bag of meow mix sat too low on the shelf for his knees to forgive, but he crouched down anyway. His back cracked in protest. Ain't no shame in staying grounded, he murmured, half to himself, half to the world. The phrase hung there weightless. As he rose, groceries in hand, he caught a glimpse of himself in the freezer door reflection. Gray in the beard, still lean, still long. 52 years old, and still here. That alone felt like a kind of quiet defiance. He passed the end cap full of discount cereal, glanced at his list, written in his Annie's voice, full of reminders and little hearts, and turned down the aisle with the canned goods. That's when he saw her. Mrs. Dolores Thompson. He didn't know her name yet, just the shape of her, tight curls perfectly pinned. Pale beige coat, even in the California heat. Purse clutched close. She was maneuvering her cart like it was a battering ram, lips pursed in a straight line, eyes scanning labels like they might lie to her. Snoop stepped aside without being asked. Habit. People like space, especially folks who looked like her. She muttered it then. Quiet, but not quiet enough. Why don't he go back to Africa? No eye contact, no hesitation, like it was a reflex. At first, he thought he misheard. Then he saw her jaw tighten. Not in fear, in certainty, the kind of certainty that came with age, with insulation, with never being questioned. He didn't move, didn't blink. The meow mix was still in his hand, the bag crinkling gently beneath his grip. He looked at her, then at the aisle, at the young mother a few feet down, frozen with a jar of spaghetti sauce in one hand, her child in the other. At the cashier near the end cap, who suddenly found the floor very interesting. The whole store had heard, but no one said a word. Snoop let out a slow, measured breath. This wasn't new, not even rare, but something about it, today here, in front of his child, felt different. He didn't speak yet. He just stood there, the air thick around him, and waited for the weight of her words to settle. Snoop didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. He turned toward her slowly, the way you'd turn toward a sudden noise in the night. Measured, intentional. His eyes scanned her face, not angry, just awake. He saw everything. The practiced poise. The way her left hand never left the card handle. The way her lips pressed tighter as he looked at her. She was daring him to react. He didn't. Excuse me, he said, soft as smoke. Mrs. Thompson blinked, then sniffed like she smelled something sour. I said what I said, she replied, straightening her spine, her voice clipped. No need to cause a scene. This is a public place. Snoop took a half step back, not toward her away, giving her space, giving her the benefit. But the words she said clung to him like smog in the lungs. They weren't just personal, they were generational. A whisper from every bus seat refused, every lunch counter denied. She didn't know who she was talking to. Or maybe she did. He looked down the aisle again. The mother with the sauce had frozen mid-motion. Her little boy clung to her leg, thumb in his mouth. The cashier had disappeared. From the other end of the aisle, a teenager with blue braids pulled out a phone, subtle and slow. Mrs. Thompson clicked her tongue. I suppose you think I should apologize now. For telling the truth. Still, Snoop didn't speak. Instead, he stepped past her cart, as gently as if he were moving around a sleeping dog. He placed the bag of meow mix in his basket, reached for the can of black-eyed peas he'd passed earlier. Then, finally, he turned to face her again. "You from around here?" he asked, his voice steady. Mrs. Thompson scoffed. "I've lived in this country all my life." "That ain't what I asked." A silence stretched. It wasn't hostile. It wasn't loud, but it filled the aisle. "I was born 3 blocks from here," Snoop said. "My grandma used to walk me past this store on Sundays, before it had the bulletproof glass. My cousin got his first job stocking these shelves. I bought my first candy bar right there." He pointed gently toward the front register. "So, if anyone's got to go back somewhere." He let the thought hang. Mrs. Thompson didn't answer, but the defensiveness in her shoulders hardened. She wasn't used to being spoken to without fear or flattery, especially not by someone like him. A shopper near the rice bags nodded slowly, murmuring something under his breath. Snoop turned slightly, taking in the faces. Nobody was laughing. Nobody was leaving. The whole store had stopped, caught in the friction between past and present, between habit and reckoning. And he hadn't even raised his voice. Not yet. Snoop stood still. Not stuck. Not stunned. Just still. He'd been in rooms with gangbangers and governors. He'd watched labels talk slick in meetings, only to shake with fear if his tone dipped. He knew what it meant to be seen as both threat and novelty, rarely as a man. And now, here he was again, in the soup aisle, watching the same game play out in a quieter key. Mrs. Thompson clutched her purse tighter. The veins in her hand pulsed blue under paper-thin skin. "People like you," she muttered, always turning everything into a moment. He tilted his head. "Ma'am, you made this a moment the second you opened your mouth." Her jaw tightened. The mother with the sauce finally placed it in her cart, carefully, like any sudden move might snap the tension. Her son was watching now, wide-eyed, not fully understanding, but understanding enough. Snoop's voice stayed low. Not passive, just measured. "You know, I've been hearing that go back to Africa line since I was 9 years old. 4th grade, playground, kid with a Batman lunchbox told me I didn't belong here." He paused. "You know what I told him?" Mrs. Thompson didn't respond. "I told him I'd go back when he found the boat ticket his great-granddaddy used to get here." A breath, half laughter, escaped someone near the bread. Not mocking, not loud, just real. Snoop's gaze never left her. "Thing is, ma'am, I ain't angry. I'm tired. Tired of pretending that silence is maturity, that politeness is safety, that if I just let the little cut slide, I'll avoid the deeper wound." A young woman near the freezer aisle, holding a basket of yogurt and orange juice, raised her phone slowly, not like she was chasing clout, but like she didn't want this moment to vanish into nothing. She wasn't the only one. 3 phones now, maybe 4. The air in the store felt warmer, heavier. Mrs. Thompson turned toward the onlookers. "You're all being ridiculous," she snapped. "I didn't say anything racist. I just suggested I don't belong here," Snoop said. "That sound about right?" She opened her mouth to argue, but no words came. Just a brittle silence. "I got news for you," he added. "I do belong here, and not just in this store. In this city, in this country, in this moment." Then he looked at the little boy again, still half hidden behind his mother's legs, eyes locked on Snoop. "And so does he." The first voice came from behind the potato chip rack. A woman's voice, older, steady. "I heard her. We all did. It wasn't loud. Just enough to cross the aisle. Just enough to make it real." Mrs. Thompson turned sharply, her eyes scanning for the source, but the speaker was already behind a display of onions, out of sight. Then came the phones. 3 had become 5, maybe 6. A teenager in a Compton high hoodie whispered, "Damn," not because anything wild had happened, just because something real had. Snoop stayed still. His posture never shifted. His voice, when it came, was level. "You said something ugly, ma'am. You can walk it back, or you can stand in it. But don't pretend the floor ain't cold." Mrs. Thompson scoffed, her voice a brittle snap. "I'm a 75-year-old woman, and I don't need to be lectured in the middle of a grocery store by a thug with tattoos." It landed like a slap. Even those who hadn't spoken stirred. The woman with the yogurt gasped. The mother near the sauce bristled. Snoop exhaled long, slow. "There it is," he said softly. He stepped back a pace, put down his basket. He wasn't holding anything now, Not even the moment. You think all this, he gestured down at himself. Sweatpants, slippers, tattoos peeking from sleeves, means I earned your hate. Like I walked in here wearing less than on my chest. Mrs. Thompson's hands trembled now, not with fear, but indignation. Her voice cracked. You people always think you're the victim. What about my right to feel safe? Safe from what? Snoop asked. From being near me? From sharing an aisle with someone you didn't expect to see in slippers instead of shackles? A low murmur rolled through the shoppers. The cashier had returned, this time with the store manager in tow, a man in his 40s, wearing a red polo and uncertain posture. He looked at Mrs. Thompson, then at Snoop, then at the cluster of raised phones. He started to speak, but a soft voice cut him off. We don't need management, said Miguel. The cashier, barely 19, hands still gloved from stocking produce. He stepped forward, face pale but jaw set. She said it. She meant it. Don't pretend this is complicated. Mrs. Thompson opened her mouth to protest, but there was no space left. The crowd was quiet, but not neutral. Not anymore. And in the center of it all, Snoop stood, not rising, not falling. Just being. Solid as oak. Calm as dusk. He had taken their silence and turned it into attention. Now he had to decide what to do with it. Snoop didn't answer right away. He just breathed, his eyes lowered for a moment. Not in shame, but in memory. The scent of pine floor polish flashed across his thoughts. Elementary school. He'd been 7, maybe 8, standing in the principal's office for pushing a boy who'd whispered "Jungle Boy" behind the monkey bars. He remembered how the principal hadn't asked what happened, just told him, "You have to control your temper, Calvin, or the world will do it for you." That was the first time he realized some people expected him to be angry, expected it the way folks expected rain from dark clouds. That even when he wasn't mad, they'd look at him like thunder was coming. He looked up now. The store was holding its breath. Mrs. Thompson was visibly shaken, but not from guilt. It was that brittle defensiveness, like a porcelain teacup rattling in a locked cabinet. "I ain't gonna curse at you," Snoop said, voice level. "Ain't gonna call you names. Ain't gonna break what little dignity you still got." He took a single step forward, enough to close the space, but not enough to crowd it. "You think I don't belong here? Ma'am, I built here. I coached Little League 2 blocks over. I got homies who died 5 minutes from this parking lot. I put Compton on the map, but I never left the neighborhood." His voice caught, not with emotion, but with clarity. "You said, go back to Africa. But I never left the block." He looked down the aisle, past the crowd, toward the boy still clinging to his mother's coat. "What you said to me, that boy heard it too. And you just taught him something." Mrs. Thompson blinked, her mouth opening, maybe to object, maybe to explain. But no words came. Snoop's gaze softened. Not pity, not anger. Something more difficult, more human. "You ever been talked to like you're less than human, ma'am?" he asked. She didn't answer. "Then maybe you don't know what it costs to forgive a moment like this." A hush, like the whole aisle bowed its head. Snoop bent down, slowly picked up his basket. He turned to Miguel. "Thanks, nephew." Miguel nodded, voice tight. "Any time, sir." And just like that, Snoop turned toward the front of the store, basket swinging low, the moment still burning behind him. The store manager finally found his voice. Mr. Dogg," he began, stepping gingerly toward the center of the aisle like someone approaching a wild animal. "We don't want any trouble." Snoop stopped, but didn't turn around. "Ain't nobody brought trouble," he said without looking back. "She brought disrespect. I brought reflection." The manager's cheeks flushed. He glanced at Mrs. Thompson, who stood stiff, still gripping her cart like it might keep her upright. We apologize on behalf of the store," he said. Snoop finally turned, his face unreadable behind his shades. "Don't apologize for the store. Apologize for the silence." The manager hesitated. He looked at the phones, still recording. Then at Miguel. Then at the mother by the sauce who stood like she'd been holding her breath the whole time. And for the first time, he said something real. "I'm sorry," he said. "We should have said something sooner." Mrs. Thompson let out a sharp exhale. This is absurd. I've shopped here for 20 years. I've never been treated this way. Miguel, still near the register, said without raising his voice, maybe nobody ever challenged you before. She turned sharply. Your child. You don't understand the world. He didn't flinch. I understand enough to know that if you're scared of a man buying cat food, the fear ain't in him. It's in you. A couple of customers murmured quietly. One older man folded his arms, eyes fixed on Mrs. Thompson with a kind of resigned disappointment, like he'd seen this play out 100 times before in different zip codes with different excuses. Mrs. Thompson looked around, as if hoping someone, anyone, would come to her defense. But no one moved, no one spoke, and in that silence something broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, just broke. Her shoulders sagged, almost imperceptibly. She didn't cry, didn't apologize, but she turned her cart around and pushed it back toward the front of the store. She left her eggs behind, left her canned beans, left the moment where it was. Snoop watched her go, not triumphant, not smug, just watchful. When she reached the automatic doors, he spoke, not to her back but to the crowd. You can't fix what you don't face. The doors slid open. She disappeared into the brightness of the street. No applause, no cheers, just breath, just quiet. And something shifted in the air, not finished, not resolved, but named. No one spoke for a moment. The kind of silence that feels sacred, the kind that follows truth. Snoop moved toward the front slowly, not rushing, not grandstanding, just walking, as if the weight of what had happened needed to be carried with care. Near the register, a teenage girl with headphones around her neck lowered her phone and whispered, "That was real." Snoop gave her a nod, small, respectful. He didn't smile, not because he wasn't grateful, but because the moment wasn't about gratitude. It was about gravity. At the checkout, Miguel was already scanning items for the mother and her son. She looked up as Snoop passed, her eyes rimmed with something raw. Not tears, those had already come and gone. What remained was steadiness, recognition. "Thank you," she said, barely above a whisper. Snoop didn't answer at first. He looked at her boy, still hugging her leg, eyes wide and quiet. "What's his name?" he asked. "Langston," she said. He smiled gently at that. "A strong name. Keep teaching him what strength really looks like." She nodded. Today helped. He turned to Miguel. "You handle that with more courage than most men twice your age." Miguel looked unsure what to say. "You think they'll fire me?" Snoop chuckled. "If they do, I'll hire you. Or, better yet, help you open your own place." The manager, hovering nearby, cleared his throat. "He's not getting fired." Snoop raised an eyebrow. "Good." The manager hesitated. Then, maybe sensing the tide, he added, when I took this job, I told myself I'd run a store that respected everyone, not just the easy customers." Snoop tilted his head. "Then you got your chance today." The manager nodded. Quiet, sincere. Outside, the sun was dipping lower now, brushing the tops of parked cars in a hazy gold. The world kept spinning. Horns honked. A bus rumbled by. Inside the store, things are moving again. Slowly, carefully. The young man in the Compton High hoodie was at self-checkout now. The older man by the rice finally picked up his bag. A new track played over the speakers. Marvin Gaye again, this time What's Going On. Snoop moved toward the exit. As he passed the door, Miguel called out, "What do I say next time someone like her comes in?" Snoop paused, then turned just slightly. "Start with, 'We heard you.'" He gave a small nod. "And go from there." The automatic doors slid open. The air outside was cooler now. But inside, something had warmed. Outside, the street buzzed with ordinary life. Lowriders idling at red lights. Aunties in floral dresses chatting at the bus stop. Someone blasting Kinder from 2 blocks down. Just Compton doing what it does. Snoop stepped into it, basket swinging from one hand, head held quiet and high. He stood on the sidewalk for a moment, soaking in the light, watching his own breath curl in the cooling air. No reporters, no crowd, just the world, unchanged and somehow different. A kid on a bike rolled past and skidded to a stop when he saw him. Yo, the boy said, breathless. That was you in there, huh? Snoop looked over, one corner of his mouth curling. What you think? The boy grinned wide. You didn't even yell. That's crazy. Snoop nodded slowly. Sometimes you don't need to raise your voice to raise the bar. The boy didn't fully get it. Not yet. But he would. Snoop walked to his car, a battered, faithful Lincoln that gleamed like gold dust under the afternoon sun. He placed the bag in the trunk. Cat food, almond milk, and greens. Nothing special, except it was. Because today, even the ordinary had weight. He slid into the driver's seat and closed the door. The quiet inside was thick, but not heavy. Just full. He rested his hands on the wheel, stared straight ahead for a long moment. It hadn't been rage. It hadn't been revenge. It had been clarity. And sometimes that was enough. From his pocket, his phone buzzed. A text from his cousin. You good? That thing go viral yet? Snoop smiled faintly and typed back. Didn't need to. It reached who it needed to. He started the car. The radio kicked on. Old school soul. A woman's voice singing about rising through ashes. Fitting. As he pulled away from the curb, he passed Carter's Market again. Miguel stood near the door, watching. They exchanged a nod. Not of fame, not of fandom. Just men, on the same page. Down the block, the little boy, Langston, waved from the back seat of his mother's sedan. Snoop lifted 2 fingers in a peace sign. Not for show, just truth. Then the Lincoln turned the corner, and the city swallowed the moment. But not the meaning.